Alright guys, so starting another video today, we're gonna go based on, let me pull my concept up, the Dynasty of Jehu. So we're gonna be going over the four generations of northern Israel after Jehu takes over the reign suddenly. We're gonna just go directly to the passage where we get the four generations and Yahweh tells Jehu that. I implore you guys, start in 2 Kings chapter 9 and read to where I start at. I start at the end of the story. But we're going to hit on the major points of the cumulative story, do the slides. This is just the verses I want to go over to frame everything together. All right, and I will say right before this, Jehu is suddenly anointed from God by the dying, pretty much, prophet Elisha. He sends a servant to go anoint him, and he, with a furious pace, goes down and assassinates the then ruling body of Israel, of northern Israel. So let's get through this. The northern kingdom, Jehu just destroyed all of the Baal worshippers by tricking them to come to the temple, and God is greatly pleased with that. All right. Jehu reigns in Israel. Thus Jehu wiped out Baal from Israel. But Jehu did not turn aside from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel to sin. That is the golden calves that were in Bethel and in Dan. And the Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in carrying out what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, your sons of the fourth generation shall sit on the throne. But Jehu was not careful to walk in the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam, which he made Israel to sin. In those days the Lord began to cut off parts of Israel. Hazael defeated them throughout the territory of Israel, from the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the Manassanites, from Aror, which is by the valley of the Aron, that is Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Jehoahaz his son reigned in his place. The time that Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria was 28 years. Alright, that's where we're going to cut off. So Jehu completely wipes out Baal worship, but like the text says, he doesn't get religiously right with God. He doesn't remove the idols in the temple, and he doesn't get back focused on praising Yahweh the way they should. He does the punishment. Jehu was a good punisher for Yahweh. He does what he's supposed to in terms of punishing who God wanted to be punished and doing it in the way God wanted. But he didn't turn from the ways of Jeroboam, who was the first king, and that's who originally had the calves put there. The calves were put there so that the people wouldn't go back to Judea, where the temple was. They were there so the people would have something to worship, which, of course, is idolatry. Let's get into it, folks. Slide 1. The Dynasty of Jehu. Rise, glory, and prophetic fall of the northern kingdom's longest ruling house. Historical and theological analysis, Kingdom of Israel. This also plays into our Jonah series. We're just building on more themes, more context of the time period of Jonah. I think it's really important to build this historical context, especially before we get in more of the prophetic books like Hosea and Amos, and even Micah. A lot of interesting stuff happening at that period. This is the time period when the northern kingdom is destroyed and judgment is carried out upon them. So let's begin. The Omri decay, the institutionalized apostasy of Ahab and Jezebel, the corruption of Israel, and the absolute necessity for a severe judicial coup d'etat. That was when Jehu just all of a sudden assassinates them and is ordained to do that by God. Yep. Anointed in absolute secrecy by Elisha's messenger, Jehu, son of Nimshi, mounts his chariot and rides with renowned, furious driving towards Jezreel. Divine execution, charged with executing wrath upon the house of Ahab, Jehu assassinates King Joram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah. Reform and compromise. Jehu acts with aggressive zeal, gathering the priests of Baal. Through subterfuge, he slaughters them and destroys the temple of Baal, uprooting Phoenician paganism from Israel. Phoenician, excuse me. Despite the purge of Baal, Jehu preserves the golden calves at Bethel and Dan to maintain political isolation from Jerusalem, failing to fully depart from the sins of Jeroboam. 4 generations. The covenant of 2 Kings chapter 10 verse 30. Because Jehu eliminated the corrupt house of Ahab, God rewards his zeal with the longest single dynasty in the history of northern Israel. A prophetic clock. This 4th generation decrees severe as both a sign, decree serves as both a sign of divine favor and a ticking countdown for the northern throne. Jehoash's affliction. Under King Jehoash, Israel was severely crushed by Hazael of Syria, or Aram, reducing the military to a mere fragment of its former glory. The 3 arrows and a test to zeal. On his deathbed, Elisha tells King Jehoash to shoot an arrow eastward, symbolizing the arrow of Yahweh's victory over Aram at Aphek. Elisha commands, strike the ground. Historically, total annihilation of an enemy required a complete 7 strikes, the biblical number to define perfection. Jehoash stops half-heartedly after only 3 strikes. Elisha is furious, recognizing a critical lack of passionate, enduring faith in God's total victory. Because he settled for 3 strikes instead of 7, Syria was contained but not eradicated, leaving a lingering threat for Israel's future. So we have some of our links and our stability. Jehu, Jehoash, Jeroboam II, and Zechariah. The extreme contrast between Jeroboam II's long prosperity and Zechariah's tragic 6-month collapse highlights the abrupt end of the 4th generation, divine promise. And this is also, Jeroboam directly follows after Jehoash, who, when he didn't completely destroy them, they would be prophesied to Nineveh under Jonah and come back to later destroy the temple after Jeroboam II's 41-year reign. 40 years being a generation, he reigned for a whole generation. They had a whole generation to turn around, but after that 1 year, they didn't. He falls, Zechariah falls too. It's just an interesting thing to think about when we look at the big picture like this. For 3 sins of Israel, even for 4, I will not relent. They sell the innocent for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. They trample on the heads of the poor. Amos chapter 2, verse 6 through 7. Again, another very prophetic message to Jeroboam II, warning of the imminent coming of God's wrath to them if they don't turn around from their ways. And honestly, folks, this is even a message nowadays to people who take advantage of the poor, the needy, the widow. There's a lot of groups of people the church needs to be taken better care of. Let's look at some timelines. The end of the line, 743. Death of Jeroboam II. Israel is at its territorial peak, but decaying eternally. The 4th generation takes the throne amidst chaos, reign defined by calf worship and instability. Shalom strikes down Zechariah, ending the dynasty. This is exactly what was prophesied. After this, there's a few years where the temple, or a few months where they are just assassinating, and there's a couple kings, and they just assassinate the next king, and it just is a cycle until they're eventually just overtaken and destroyed by Assyria. Archaeological digs in Samaria have unearthed monumental walls and hundreds of highly detailed ivory plaques. These artifacts vary the spectacular, decadent wealth described by the prophets Amos and Hosea during the golden reign of Jeroboam II. This was the word of Yahweh, which he spoke to Jehu. And so, here's some of my image guys. I love to hear some feedback. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thank you.